everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical. And if you are watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Cami is here tonight. We're not going to be talking about new comic books today, as a matter of fact, because we're here to discuss the best of 2025. I know that we are a little bit late, but let's just say things have been a little bit crazy, but we both said we have to do this because we have a ton of stress in our lives, and nothing relieves that stress more than just talking with good friends about shit. Pointless shit that means absolutely nothing to the real world. So I was like, yes, I am totally on board with you, Cami, so I definitely am there with you.
Currently unemployed again, but no, I work for the federal government, so I don't know
Let's
what
leave
the
it at
hell's going on.
that.
I never know which way is up anymore. But there's comics, and that, like you said, is our saving grace, and it helps us through some difficult times. So I'm glad that we put this together. We usually do this in January, but what the hell? We're still early in February. Let's talk
Yeah,
comics.
yeah, and before we get started, I have to give a shout out to the rest of the team. I mean, I know the first time we did the best of, it was all of us in a room together talking about our favorites of the past year. But Cami, I gotta be honest, as great as it is to have everybody in the room, when you're dealing with a topic like this and there's a lot of people in one room, things can definitely get out of control and convoluted. So sometimes just being two people in a self-contained environment is better. But the point that I'm making here is that even though you don't see the entirety of the staff here on That's Comical here all the time, they are an integral piece of the family here, and we wouldn't be the channel that we are, even though we are still a relatively small channel, without everybody on this team. Andy, Shay, even Teddy, and of course April doing all of that amazing thumbnail work that she does. It was great to have her on our last discussion of Feral. Looking forward to doing that again in the coming months. But let's talk about those best of 2025. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen tonight, because I know that even though Cami is not just someone that records videos, she watches our videos too. So I have a strange feeling that she actually knows what my number one pick of 2025 is. But anyway, I am excited to see what her picks are. And I know I'm going on rambling here, but I got to set the record straight. I got to set the mood here, everybody. So the best part about being here on That's Comical is that we all do our own thing here collectively at the same time. So we all, when it comes to ranking our best of the past year, some of us have certain rules, but you don't need to stick to the rules of just one person. You go your own way, as the great Fleetwood Mac said. So I just want to let everybody know how I determine my best of the year, and Cami will obviously, as the show progresses, show us how she does it. But my thing basically focuses on three specific factors. First of all, if it's an ongoing title, it has to be something that came out in the previous year. It has to have completed its first story arc. Ironically, one of those comics that didn't complete its first story arc in 2024 happens to be in my top three of 2025. And when it comes to mini and maxi series, when it comes to mini series, if a larger portion of your short lived series took place in 2025 for this specific video and not necessarily 2024 or 2026, a perfect example, and I'm going to say this because unfortunately it's not in my top three. Beneath the Trees When Nobody Sees Rite of Spring is a 6-issue miniseries, and 4 issues of that miniseries came out in 2025, with the final 2 issues coming out in 2026. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a 2025 comic. And same goes for a maxi series. The first arc or a larger chunk of the maxi series, depending on how long the series goes. That was a heaping breath. Cami, those are my rules. If I know you're a little bit different than me.
No, I try to follow your rules because you've kind of always set the bar for this channel. So I will pick something that either began and ended in that previous year, or perhaps started in the year previous but ended in the current year. So, in other words, we're talking about 2025 favorites. So, it would have had to have started in 24, ended in 25, or been all in 25. That's just, I think it's fair. We try obviously not to do anything before that because we're trying to stay current with our favorites. Obviously, on this channel we talk a lot about all kinds of things to include vintage titles, so this for us is a way to stay in the relevant here and now.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, comics that came out in the last, whether it was 2022, 2023, 2024, want to basically say that even though you will not find those titles on my top 3 as well as my honorable mentions, not going to say that those books are not bad. Feral is still one of the best books out there. Don't even get me started on how incredible Transformers has been. Almost just about every title in the Ghost Machine universe has just been absolute fire. So there has still been a great deal of great comics that came out just in previous years and are still going as strong as they were when they first come out. And that makes me happy because as far as I'm concerned, I watched the Image Revolution documentary a couple of days ago because I just love that. And it's been a while since I've seen it. And Mark Silvestri said it best. Comic books had never had a revolution. When Image Comics happened, it was a perfect time and a perfect place. When I don't think that that's ever going to happen again. I gotta tell you, Cami, I don't know why, but I feel that there may be another revolution coming. And I was saying this all the way back in 2024. I said something is going to happen that is going to cause a major shift in comic sales, in titles, in companies. And things have started to shift in the previous year because for the first time in decades, DC has outdone Marvel in sales of all of their books, which is something that hasn't happened in years. Marvel has been #1 for decades, and now it is crazy to see that DC is taking the top spot. But I'm telling you, based on my personal experience as someone who has read DC and Marvel comics past and present, I don't know why the big two are still at the very top, because as far as I'm concerned, the indie market is strong and extremely healthy. It's just a matter of word of mouth, getting those titles to the masses and telling people there are some amazing things out there that you are not reading. And the truth of the matter is, you have to.
Well, and I think we showcase this end over end, year over year, where we are constantly talking about these indie titles. So I think we do a lot of justice for the indie market. But like you said, for some reason the sales just aren't exceeding the big two. And you can't help it. I think with people, we gravitate to what we know. And I think anytime DC or Marvel has a new initiative, regardless if we're really planted in that particular realm at the time, we're going to check some things out, which of course, envelop their sales. But we have been massive stewards of always advocating for our indie titles, our indie presses. So I think confidently tonight you're probably going to see a lot of indie titles from us because that's just who we are.
So, who's going first this time?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Would you do? Well, you went first last time, so I don't know if you
Oh,
want
did
me
I?
to go
Oh,
first
okay.
or
Wait.
you go
Yeah,
first.
you're right. I did. No, you go first. You go first.
Okay, this is exciting. So my top 3. We're going to start with number 3, and we're going to work our way up to number 1. And before we get to number 1, we will go through some honorable mention.
Yes.
So this was a very interesting book to come out at number 3, and it's actually a book from the big two. But the reason why it's there is just because of the fact that it was the creative team that sold me on this book. And of course, the creative team are indie gods. And
Okay.
these are names that you and I have been sharing with the masses over the past year due to a little segment that we have on our channel called Ice Cream Man by The Scoop.
Oh.
So when this book was announced, this DC Black Label book by W. Maxwell Prince, artwork by Martin Morazzo and Chris O'Halloran. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do, but I have got to check this book out. It was the 5-issue miniseries of Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum. This
Okay.
book, W. Maxwell Prince did something that I never thought he would do in a million years, and that was he didn't stick the landing with issue number 5. I found issue number 5 to be very, very bizarre and out there, but then again, I didn't care about that because the story as a whole was crazy and wacky. It was fun. It was full of bright colors. It was a time where I was reading a book and I couldn't remind myself of a time when I saw Batman that lighthearted and cheerful and enjoyable to read. But I just was so interested knowing that the Ice Cream Man team was going to take on one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. And not just Superman, the fact that we got other heroes and other villains. I mean, I loved how they wrote Batman. I loved how they wrote Lex Luthor. Loved that they brought Mr. Mxyzptlk from the Fifth Dimension into the story, because you couldn't have a W. Maxwell Prince story without Mr. Mxyzptlk. That's all I'm going to say. So knowing that he was there and getting Shazam in there too, this book was so enjoyably weird. That's all that I'm going to say. As an Ice Cream Man fan, regardless of not sticking the landing, overall, this was one of the most standout, unique reads of 2025. And it almost ended up being my number one. I'm not joking. It almost ended up being my number one, but certain things were just tipping the scale in other directions and other favors, and this just dropped a little bit after that. But still, if you want to read one of the most bizarre versions of Superman, you will never see Superman like this ever again, unless the Ice Cream Man team comes back to DC to do a sequel. That's all I'm
That's
going to
interesting.
say.
That was a surprise for me because I remember you talking about that in your stats, picks, and trends. And I remember you distinctly saying that the landing just wasn't there for you. So to see it in your top 3 is awesome. That means that it was a really good story because, sometimes there are pivots in stories where it doesn't quite work, but there's still just something about it that it makes you love it, even if it wasn't perfect.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Overall, I had a good time with it, and that's always what matters. It's like, I'm going to say something that I don't think I've ever had this conversation. I like to write pointless lists, and I like to talk about my best of. And when I tell people that I think that Mrs. Doubtfire is better than Schindler's List, people try and figure out what I'm smoking and why I'm not sharing. Because what makes the best movie of a year for me is my overall enjoyment. Not the importance, not the significance, not the topic. If I do not have an overall amazing time watching this movie, it is not going to be the best movie that I've seen that past year. Those great movies will get their accolades, as they should, but that's the point that I'm saying. I need to have an overall dandy old time when I'm reading these books. And that's why this book had to be in my top 5 at least, because issues 1 through 4 were so much fun to read. I mean, I still remember putting issue number 1 down, and I was like saying to myself, I don't know what I just read, but I want to read more of this.
Oh, cool. I'm glad. And that was a good cover too that you picked because that was one of the favorites that you showcased from the series for me.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it was also really interesting to see Morazzo and O'Halloran's art, because I was dying to see how these characters were going to look in these comic pages. And again, the way that Batman looked, the way that Lex Luthor looked, the way that the way that Shazam looked, it was just enjoyable. And again, it's also really cool to see W. Maxwell Prince a little bit outside of its horror bubble. I mean, he does horror beautifully, but dark fantasy and weird and whimsical, he does that very well too.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I like it. We're off to it and a
Yeah.
start that I wasn't anticipating. So I don't know. I might not have your number one plague then or peg then.
All right, so I'm dying. Oh, so I gotta tell you, when we talked about our best of 2024, I still remember that your third out of all of them was the Autumn Kingdom, and I'm really excited for the coming weeks because we're gonna get our sequel from Cullen Bunn. I'm so excited
Finally.
yeah, we have to talk about the Autumn Kingdom on the show. We haven't reviewed the book at all. Maybe we should do that soon, right around the time the second book comes out. But
I would love to do that because I feel that that did not get enough oxygen.
I agree, especially for someone like Cullen Bunn, who is a great writer. But also, you talked about one of the Ghost Machine titles in number 2, and that was Hornsby and Halo. So I was really curious to see if that was still going to be high on your list, or if anything in your honorable mentions. But I'm dying to hear your third out of your. I'm dying to hear your number 3.
I really think I'm going to throw you for a loop this year because I
You
think
always do.
that I think that you might be anticipating kind of similar what you said. Because my tastes last year, I feel were slightly predictable with the exception of Halo and Hornsby. I think I shocked you with that one because I don't even think I knew you had mentioned it to me, but I don't think you knew that I picked up on it and went and actually picked it up. So, I am horror centric and I felt like I had really lost my roots and my touch there for a while. And I am constantly picking up indie horror title comics and I feel like they don't get enough love from me. And so this year I really focused on not only buying them but really laying in and reading them because I missed the genre. So coming in at number 3 for me is an Ani Press title and that is Plague House.
Oh.
So Plague House is one that really surprised me. And although I don't feel like it was amazing, it was amazing in all the right ways. There was just enough horror that really captured me. So I am all about kind of the paranormal. And so this actually follows a team of ghost hunters. And so we have 3 main characters. We have Dale, we have Jacob, and we have the female, her name's escaping me, Holland. Okay, there we go. Holland is kind of like the tech guru. We've got Dell, who is like the religious guru, and then Dell is the creator of the whole concept. And they initially, when we start out, are investigating this house where a man has committed a brutal murder. He has basically wiped out his entire family with a hammer, and it's got a really unique twist on it. So that's I think why it landed in my top 3 because you're expecting just a normal paranormal investigation. But Dell, which is kind of our narrator throughout the story, is alluding to the house. He keeps saying that, there's just something about the house that it calls you, it beckons you. It's almost asking you to finish what was left here. In other words, you have an investigation by police, detectives, and they're trying to investigate the murder, and you don't always have the why behind why somebody did something. So after they do their own paranormal investigation, there ends up being what they call a cleansing. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Meaning that the murderer, the father, was in prison, but after 3 days after they investigated this house, he ends up getting murdered in prison. So it was kind of like the house spoke to them. And there was the unfortunate situation here, but after they were able to visibly see all the deceiving, then this guy just mysteriously gets murdered in prison. So you think, okay, this whole, series, it's a 4-part series, is going to basically be surrounded by just this house, just this murder. But then they start investigating other murders and it happens very rapidly. That's why I wasn't sure by issue number 2, I was going to love this because I'm like, man, this is moving at a really fast pace. They were just kind of skimming the surface of all these other murder stories. And how ironically, after every paranormal investigation, there was a cleansing. The murderer would mysteriously end up dead. So now okay, something nefarious is happening in the background. So flash forward to kind of the end of this. We have some unfortunate breaking up of the gang, so to speak, but I don't want to give too much away. I want to encourage people to pick this up. Again, it's Ani Press, it's Plague House, 4 issues, super easy read, but I think it's so unique that it does land on the traditional tropes of ghost hunting, paranormal, murder, mayhem, but the ending is really gonna it's gonna shock you. You're gonna be like, I didn't see that coming, at least I didn't, and it was good. Like, good writing, good characters, palatable. I had a lot of fun with it, and it just had all the right blood splatter for me. So yeah.
Two things. Number one, you throw me for more loops than kitty cereal. I just want to make that known. And two, this is an interesting fun fact. This is now 2 years in a row where Ani Press is your number 3.
Oh shoot, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, that is also an Ani Press title. Like, totally. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, that
So
is pretty cool. Okay, so Plague House is a title that I definitely remember seeing, but nobody talked about it. So I'm really
so
glad
good.
that you did, because I always like to know, when you take a look at all the comics coming out in a certain week, especially when you get to certain publishing companies that really do not make that many titles, like Ani Press and Bad Idea, and you see those comics in the weekly releases, and you see those comics on the store shelves, you wonder to yourself, is anybody picking them up? Because again, as someone who recently talked about how we really try to advocate for indie labels here, it's nice to know that it seems that eventually every single title that comes out in a given week will be read by someone. That's the one thing that I can definitely say is true. There is not a single book that comes out every single week that is at least not read by one person in this world. So I'm glad that you discovered Plague House. I'm glad that you seem to enjoy it. I definitely was listening to you. I had a little bit of a Ghostbusters slash Death Note kind of vibe, which is pretty cool. I like it when
Yeah.
weird things do kind of blend together. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really am.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the vigilante vibe to be mixed with horror and loving it. So yeah, it was a fun title. I really suggest people that enjoy that genre pick it up.
All right. So fun titles. That is definitely going to be the theme of my number 2. So let me just say, I'm so happy that this book is at number 2, or at least in my top 3, but never in my wildest dreams did I think it was going to be. I mean, I was going to read it no matter what, because I like the writer, and of course, I like the universe that it belongs to. But oh my goodness, these days, whenever the new issue is coming out, I get extremely excited to read it. And it's Josh Williamson's G.I. Joe over at Image Comics,
Awesome.
the Energon universe. So I cannot remember G.I. Joe, the cartoon, from a hole in the wall, except for a couple of characters and, of course, the iconic theme song.
Yeah.
So, of course, with the Energon universe, starting with Void Rivals, seeing that Transformers and G.I. Joe, and in 2026, we all know Mask is next, but G.I. Joe was the one title I was unsure about, loving as much as I was going to love the other two. But I love Josh Williamson. I mean, Josh Williamson is one of the best writers out there. And I will say right now, even though he's doing a ton of stuff for DC, and believe it or not, just last week, he wrote his first Marvel title. He's reinventing Iron Man right now. So he just did Iron Man 1. Big news about him working with Marvel. But this is his best work right now. I don't care what anybody says, bar none, hands down. G.I. Joe is his best writing right now. And so that's the reason why I had to get it. And the funny thing was, I was reading it. I was having a good time. Kept reading it, having a better time. And it slowly, because remember, this book came out in 2024, but only
Yeah.
the first 2 issues came out. So in my rules, this is a 2025 book. And it slowly kept creeping up to the top. And every single time a new G.I. Joe issue comes in, I get so excited. The guy who runs my comic book store says to me, when new comic book day comes around and I start opening the books, there are two titles that I immediately stop everything and read the newest issue when it comes out. Right now, it's Matt Fraction's Batman over at DC and Josh Williamson's G.I. Joe over at Image Comics in the Energon universe. And what makes us realize how amazing G.I. Joe is think about it. This title is almost 20 issues in, and Snake Eyes has still not shown up.
Yeah, that's true.
We just got Roadblock with issue 18. Everybody was excited, but no, I love this book. It is everything you want. You see that cover, you're going to get exactly what you get on the cover. The Dreadnought War was phenomenal. I had so much fun with those issues, and now it's only going to get better because of the crazy cliffhanger that came after the Dreadnought War. And I'm so excited for the next couple of issues of G.I. Joe because Duke is finally going to meet Optimus Prime. That's what's making me so excited for the next story arc of G.I. Joe. But yeah, I cannot recommend G.I. Joe enough. Even if you don't know what the hell G.I. Joe is, you should definitely read it. If you're currently reading G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero by Larry Hama, and you're not reading G.I. Joe by Joshua Williamson, I don't know what to say to you guys. This book is so amazing. It really, really is. And I'm so glad that it is my number 2 of 2025. I can't wait to read the next issue.
That's so cool. I'm liking it. Yeah, you're throwing me here and I'm not anticipating. So good. This is good.
No, and we still have to talk about G.I. Joe on the channel. We haven't
We
even
do.
I
I
know.
feel like we haven't even skimmed the surface on the Energon universe, you know, like we've talked about obviously Transformers, we've talked about Void Rivals, you know, but I mean there's just so much intertwining, and there, you know, we haven't talked about Cobra Commander, Duke, we haven't done any of that, and there's so many layers to that. So yeah, I'm glad to see GI Joe because you looped me in on that, and I'm glad. I think it was kind of my underlying segue to being an Energon universe reader, and it really helped to make a lot of those titles a lot more enjoyable because it's fun to watch the storylines interweave.
Not to say that you don't enjoy it, but you're not really as invested in the DC books, and that's probably just because of the fact that there's just so much to catch up on. So I'm also wondering, I think this may be the very first time you've ever read a Josh Williamson comic with G.I. Joe. So
you're absolutely correct.
And is he not an amazing writer? Because the very first time I read him was when he first came on the scene in DC and did his Flash run. His Flash run is one of the best next to Jeff Johns and Mark Waid's. So he did a great job with the Flash. So every single time he's got a new book coming out, I've got to check it out. I've been reading a little bit of his Superman currently. I'm really enjoying his Superman comic as well, but nothing that he's doing right now, and he's doing a lot, which is why I'm afraid he's getting stretched too thin. But G.I. Joe is his absolute best right now.
Yeah, it's good writing, good story. It sucks you in, and you're entertained the whole time. So that to me is a good comic.
Absolutely. So what is your number 2, my friend?
So yeah, the Horror Queen strikes again. So this one's actually an IDW title. This one I specifically asked for a pull on because as soon as I heard the title, I was like, I don't care who the writer is, I don't care what the story is, I need this in my life.
I think I know what it is.
Guess.
Is it Twilight Zone?
It is not.
Oh, wow. Because I'm thinking about the titles that IDW has made, so I'm dying to know what it is now if it's not Twilight Zone.
So you know what? Let me pin this because I don't know if this one started. Okay, here's the hint. It started in 24, finished in 25.
Okay, I'm still lost.
Because I'm like, I think this is one of the few that I picked that starts in 24. Okay, so this one is The Exorcism at 1600 Penn.
Oh, I remember that.
This is so good. Oh my God. It is so good. So it is a supernatural horror, and we are all in the political fields. I am a huge history buff. I absolutely love history. And when it pairs with horror, there's just something super special about it. I have always been a fan of exorcisms. So how could this go wrong? It couldn't. It's perfect. I love it so much. It is a female driven female writer. We have Hannah Rose May, and it is illustrated by Vanessa Del Rey. And we have a story that it's centered very female heavy. We have a female president, and she is trying to do that work life balance of being a mom but also being the president. And it starts out in her first 100 days, so it's super exciting from the jump because you have a new president, and then you have catastrophic things happening, as often it does within the first 100 days. She is on the brink of a potential war. She has an inside issue going on with a couple of senators. The press is hounding her. And of course, she's got children, high school children that are going to Catholic school. Now we've got religion in it. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This is happening. I freaking love when horror meets religion because, once again, you can't go wrong. Now, of course, if you heard the word exorcism out of my mouth, you know that religion is eminent. But having the Catholic school, it just gives it this extra notch, and it's so palatable. And her son and her daughter are obviously new to this school, not the first Catholic school for them, but they're trying to find, and sow their oats, so to speak, find new friends. The daughter is kind of an introvert, the son very much an extrovert. Father is a doctor, and we have a very cool family dynamic. They're a solid household, but with everything going on, and of course, this, potential loom of this religion, one of the children becomes possessed. And in doing so, they have to find what is the culprit behind it, because obviously a possession manifests itself to something, and that manifestation, they are trying to drive, the demon is trying to drive themselves out of whatever they are attached to and try to find a human vessel. And so he is doing everything he can. I won't give away which child is possessed because it's a very short series. It's 4 pages, but we're getting a new one too. We're getting The Exorcism at Buckingham Palace, and that's coming out.
No.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Oh,
And fun
wow.
fact for this too, this just got a movie deal through Blumhouse, and
Oh,
I am
wow.
stoked because this is going to be a perfect fit for a Blumhouse title. So if you are into demonic possession, religious horror, exorcism, political genre, and you know what, it's good politics. There is, and I think that this was almost a number one pick for me, to be quite frank. And there is this huge drive at the end of issue number 4 that talks about unity and our society and the division that we're facing, and just the true meaning of what it means to unify and how that unification can, just overcome everything. Obviously, exorcisms and 100 days and family dynamics, but there is just such a beautiful message in there. And we have always talked about how comics can be political, but this is so well done. It doesn't hurt. There's sometimes where it's a little too this way or a little too that way. This is perfect. This is for everybody. And it's a freaking fun story in the mix. So I am stoked about the movie. And if you love horror just a little bit, I really think that you would love this series.
Well, horror is no doubt in right now. I mean, take a look at 2025 in the film world, and let's talk about like 2 of the most talked about movies of 2025. One of them was obviously Alex Krieger's Weapons. I know that we have mixed feelings about it,
We
but so
do.
many people went to see it. So many people talked about it. I thought it was so unique. But of course, let's talk about the movie that just broke the record for most Academy Awards nominations, Ryan Coogler's Sinners. So yeah, horror is very much an in thing right now. You see it in the movies. You definitely are seeing it in the comic books. And I remember seeing that title, but I don't know why it didn't drive me to get there. Maybe it was just because of the fact that I was so enveloped in what's going on right now in the Ghost Machine universe. Because
How can that
obviously,
not draw you in? Look at that. It is the Oval
I
Office.
remember
It's
the cover.
gorgeous.
But
It's
also
gorgeous.
knowing that we are going to be getting a similar sort of story in the Ghost Machine universe called First Ghost. Like, I'm dying to know what that's all about and when it's actually happening. And I'm not going to lie about the fact that I'm also interested in the political stuff. I mean, what is my favorite title still to this very day? I'm still, and you too, we're still very much avid readers of Department of Truth, and I'm still waiting for that movie slash TV show to finally pop up somewhere, because that's without a doubt one of my favorite books right now. It's still out there, it's still going strong. But no, I'm glad that you read this book too. I mean, I remember seeing it. Nobody again talked about it. And I'm surprised you weren't ranting and raving about it for me on a daily basis. This is not like you, Cammy.
I
You're losing it here.
I'm losing my touch here. No, you're absolutely right. I honestly don't think any of my favorite picks this year I've discussed with you in any capacity, which is really odd because usually when I'm super stoked about something, you hear about it. You'll know at least I'm reading it because we're always talking about, hey, what are you reading? That kind of a thing. And we read a lot of titles together. Obviously we're both very vested in our throwback series. We're very vested in the Energon series. So we're always talking about that. So I think a lot of these are going to be a surprise to you because they just kind of stayed quiet because we were so excited about everything else we were reading together this year,
Well,
this past year.
and the fact that I apparently surprised you with two titles too, that makes me very happy
You
as well.
did. And I love that because that just goes to show you no matter how good of friends we are, no matter how often we talk, we still have surprises.
Right. So I know that we got our number ones to talk about, but we got to do honorable mentions. I actually have not just my honorable mentions, which are technically my numbers 4 and 5 from my top 5 of 2025, but I also wanted to throw in a couple of extra goodies. So I want to do the extra goodies after your honorable mentions, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So my
Okay.
honorable mentions are a little obscure. I want to say you put this title on my radar, but I'm not 100% sure. I just about everything I read is probably because of you. I love this story. I thought it was extremely unique. I thought it was something unlike I've ever really seen before. And I was fully vested from the jump. Like, I wanted to know what's going to happen. Where is this going? It was just a wild ride. It was magical. It was whimsical. And it was good writing. Any thoughts? A Boom Studios title.
Oh, shoot. What did I. Oh, God. What did I read from Boom Studios? Oh, dear God. I don't. Just tell me. Just tell me. What's in the box?
Uncanny Valley.
Oh, Uncanny Valley.
So
Tony Fleeks. Tony
this was
Fleeks.
fun, and I think a lot of it was driven by Fleeks, to be honest. I mean, the
That's why I
writing
bought it.
is the writing is fun, the story is fun, but come on, the idea of going from the real world into cartoons, I mean, how is that not us?
It's Who
Like, this
Framed
is
Roger. It was the sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit that we all wish we had.
totally. Oh my gosh, if you are a fan of Roger Rabbit, if you are a fan of 80s, 90s cartoons, even shoot, you can go back 50s, 60s because I feel like there's a nod to a lot of like fun, timeless, the Roadrunner, the Coyote, but
Right.
it's not exactly them. It's like there's like this image of them, but very different. And
Well,
I love the wholesome.
well, let's also, I don't want to spoil it. I mean, a couple of
Yeah,
interesting things about Uncanny Valley was the fact that this book was only supposed to be a 5-issue miniseries, and then it got renewed for another story arc, so it ended up being 10 in total, which is great. But also the origin of the main villain, that freaked me the fuck out when I found out
I
who it
think
was.
that's why it ended up being an honorable mention for me because that was very unsettling for me.
Yeah.
Very unsettling as a fan, and you know how deep my fandom goes for that. Again, I don't want to say anything because I don't want people
No, people
to
need to read
know.
Uncanny Valley. They really do.
But the manifestation of what he is to us and what he transformed into was very scary, but it was good for the writing and it was good for
Absolutely.
the prolonging of it. So I'm really happy that they did get picked up for another arc of this. Obviously it finished in 25, so that's why it's an honorable mention for me.
Mhm.
If you haven't yet picked up Uncanny Valley 10 issues, it's worth your time because it's
Absolutely.
unique. It's so unique,
It
you know?
really is. It really is. And this was the second title that I read from Tony Fleecs, and this was before Feral. So I was really excited to check that one out. Yeah, I mean, like, I think for me, I hit a little bit of a lull in the center, but it definitely started off beautifully and it ended beautifully too.
No, I
So that's good to
completely
see. That is
agree.
great to see.
Yeah, the first, I think I was good vested in the first 4 issues. 5 and 6 fell a little flat for me, but then it picked right back up again. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay, one of my honorable mentions. This was actually my fifth pick in my top five, and I'm not gonna lie, it's sort of faltering a little bit, but we are getting to the very end. But the only reason why it's there is just because when I first read this book, I couldn't believe how amazing it was, and it was also so nice to finally read something from a certain writer that I truly enjoyed for the first time in a long time, and that was Exquisite Corpses from Image
Oh,
Comics. It's still
Tynion.
it's been yes, it's James Tynion, and along with Department of Truth, there hasn't been a Tynion title that I truly have been enjoying. I mean, look, we're getting the Nice House by the Sea finally, but that first part
Finally.
was so weird, and I don't really know what to think about it. But when I read the first issue of Exquisite Corpses, I was blown away.
Yeah,
I
it's good.
love the idea. I love what it's all about. I'm like, I know there's going to be a card game coming out of this, but they've got to make a movie out of this. They have to
Yeah,
because it's just so movie worthy. And
yeah,
again, it's just a lot of fun. It's ending with
it is.
a total of 13 issues. We're almost there, but like I said, it sort of faltered a little bit, but I'm still having a good time with it, and I'm glad that I'm enjoying something from James Tynion again. You know?
Yes. Yes, agreed.
Okay, so what was got another honorable mention for me?
So another honorable mention, this one, it was kind of a weird one for me because I think I expected it to be something else, but it was still heartwarming because of the nostalgia. And that is a 4 issue series of Jim Henson Presents. So
Oh,
this one, I was kind of, I guess, expecting a mashup. And let me take it out of the sleeve here so you get like a better image here.
that's a boom
I was
title, right?
this is a boom title, yes. So I
Okay.
was expecting, based on the cover, because this was a complete cover buy for me. Of course, you see Jim Henson, it's a win. But I was expecting like a mashup of these stories. So we have The Labyrinth, we have Fraggle Rock, we have Dark Crystal, and then we have a story that I wasn't familiar with in the world of Jim Henson, and that's Farscape. And I think the reason I really didn't
Oh,
get vested in that is because it's very sci-fi, and I remember as a kid kind of being freaked out about his sci-fi stuff because it was dark, you know? So,
Farscape is one of the shows that was literally out right when I got cable. And I wanted to get into it so badly, but I just didn't have the time. Farscape has been one of those shows in my head, basically saying to myself, you really need to find some time to watch it. And more importantly, you got to find out where it's streaming because a lot of people love Farscape. Lots of
yeah.
people. It was a big cult fan favorite. I think it was on for 5 years on Sci-Fi. The idea was cool. The fact that it had practical effects. I know this is your time, but I just got to tell you, I'm glad we're mentioning it because I really do need to watch Farscape. I really do.
Well, I think you would really enjoy this then because, like I said, it really caught me for, a loop, and it threw me off guard because I was expecting a mashup of all these stories. And it wasn't that. It's shorts of each of these franchises. And so if you're not familiar, like I wasn't with Farscape, this is a really good introduction. And if you are revisiting these favorites, it takes you right back into the world, you know? So you're having so much fun in Fraggle Rock. You are loving your Labyrinth. A Dark Crystal came for me much later in life. I was a young adult in my 20s when I became acquainted with that franchise, and that was only because a girlfriend of mine was like, how are you a Labyrinth fan and you've never watched Dark Crystal? Like, what happened? And I'm like, again, I think it was just so dark, it didn't appeal to me. At least with Labyrinth you had music and David Bowie. You
Well,
know.
yeah, I mean, you have the magic dance. It's kind of hard to resist that.
Absolutely. But no, this was a 4 issue series and it was fun. It was fun to go through the nostalgia of it. It was fun to learn about new characters and visit new worlds. So if you're a fan of Jim Henson or any of those franchises that I mentioned, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So I thought it was worth the mention because I think that it may have been overlooked by some people who actually enjoy this type of nostalgia.
Mhm. So my other honorable mention, which actually ended up being my fourth favorite of the year, so it would have been a sin, even though it wasn't in my top three. I'm just glad that along with the Energon universe, it was great to know that Ghost Machine also ended up being in my top five. But it was the title that I never in a million years expected it to be, and that was Hyde Street.
Oh,
Hyde
good one.
Street by Jeff Johns,
Yeah.
artwork by Ivan Reis, and coloring by Danny Miki. These are
Yeah.
some of the greats. Again, horror is in right now. And
Yeah.
you know that even though I'm dabbling in horror, it's still not the thing that I gush about. But it's like Jeff Johns, when he was doing the Ghost Machine universe and announcing it, I was like, I have to at least try out every single title. I mean, when I read the Ghost Machine special and I learned about everything from the return of Geiger to the Rockefellers, he was joining with Peter Tomasi and a ton of other great artists, and they were just dibbling and dabbling in everything from fantasy to horror. And I said, I don't know if I'm gonna like Hyde Street, but I'm gonna I'm gonna at least give every single title a shot. And holy God, this first issue blew my mind. And the more I read, the more I had fun. Even the one shot, Devour, was such a great issue. And I loved how everything ties in. The 5 issue miniseries that came out earlier this year, I believe it was even in my top 10, Sisterhood. That was Mean
Yeah.
Girls Meets the Craft. And it was so
Yeah.
much fun to read. But Hyde Street, I think the problem with Hyde Street right now is the fact that the issues are so few and far between. I don't know what the delay is on some of the titles on Ghost Machine, while other ones like Geiger and Hornsby and Halo and Redcoat are coming out so consistently. Not that they're bad reads. I want to also make it known every single Ghost Machine title is one of the best pieces of comic book literature that you are going to read. That's all that I'm going to say. I'm just done. I don't understand why High Street is constantly delayed, but I'm always excited for a new issue of High Street.
I don't know. They say, good things come to those who wait. So I think they make us wait because they are so good by the time we get our hands on them.
Yeah. So I also had a couple of other treats. I wasn't sure if you had any more honorable mentions or not.
I did read some fun titles, but unfortunately, some of the things that I wanted to be like epic for me, they just kind of fell flat. So, like Bug Wars, for example, I tried it. I had a really hard time getting into that world. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's a unique story, but as much as I tried, it just wasn't there for me. And then also, Dan Poseidon, the Last Boy. I was kind of underwhelmed, and it's unfortunate,
Really?
yeah, because I was so taken aback with his Alice series. I'm still enamored with it. Obviously, we're in our third arc and probably final for the series. So I went into The Last Boy thinking, okay, he's going to nail Peter Pan. And I don't know, Peter just wasn't it for me. There was, I don't, again, you immediate spoiler in issue number 1. how do you do that to a beloved character? You know, that for me was like first rattle out of the cage. And then Wendy's story was very depressing. So I think it was lighthearted too much in areas where it came to Peter. I felt like Peter was very dismissive of people that have been very supportive of him, like Tiger Lily, Tinkerbell. I didn't jive with his attitude in his character build, and I loved the finality in issue number 5. I do appreciate how he tied it all together and where Peter ended up. So there's definitely potential for a second story arc. Maybe he can wow me if we go that direction. But yeah, I was kind of like, we could have done better. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's because I'm such a Disney fanatic, because Alice Ever After isn't at all mirrored from the Disney franchise. It is very much Lewis Carroll driven. And I think that's why I connected with it so much, because I was so impressed with his ability to have historical tie ins. And it was just so believable. I wanted more. I just wanted more from
Yeah.
from the Last Boy. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, you're not wrong, because The Last Boy was one of my. It started off good for me, really, really enjoyed it, but no, as a whole, it really didn't end up hitting the mark. Like, it was actually in my at one point in time, it was in my top 5, and then it was in my top 10, and before you know it, it was completely out of there. Like,
Yeah.
that's just the way it was. But so I had two other things that just stood out to me, and I just wanted to talk about them quickly. The first one is from a company that we are scratching the surface on, and we're going to talk much more about them. They're one of the big up and coming publishing companies in comics, and that's Mad Cave Studios. They have a
Oh yeah.
small selection, but they're definitely doing some good stuff there. And one of the things that came out last year was a trade paperback called Sunder by Pierre Alexander Comtois. I think that's how you pronounce it, or Commodus, or something like that. But you know me, I love a good story with anthropomorphic animals. This
Yeah.
looked like a Lord of the Rings kind of story. I thought that this was very enjoyable. I loved the character. The main character is this goat that looks like Bone to a certain degree. His name is Zeke. He's like a priest assistant who goes on a quest, and he meets a couple of interesting characters on the way. And right now, I have no idea what's going on with this series. It seems to be in limbo, but it was such a good first volume, and I really want more of this story, and I want more people to read this. If you like lighthearted fantasy, especially if you like something that's sort of Disney-esque with a little bit of Tolkien thrown there in the mix, I think you would very much enjoy it. Another thing, you know, I gotta be honest, this should have been in my top 5 of 2025, possibly even one of my top 3. But I picked it up a little too late, and I just didn't think that it would be right if if I had it overshadow everything. It was a 2-part miniseries. It was a Spawn Universe duology called I Saw Santa. I
I haven't heard
heard
that.
about it. People were talking about it. People who read it said it was really good. And then they made an announcement next year that there's going to be a sequel duology, and it's going to be with Spawn actually being in the book itself. But I will just tell you something, Cammy. You will never look at Santa Claus the same way again when you actually read I Saw Santa. I was shocked by how good this book was. It is, you love horror
Yeah.
mixed in with Christmas. This is something completely different. I was floored by how enjoyable this 2-part comic book was. So it's not in my top 5, even though there was a very good chance that it could have been. It's just because I literally hunted down the first issue, and the second issue came out the day before Christmas. So I waited a little bit to read them, but holy shit, this book was insane.
Cool. I'll have to track it down.
Yeah. So now we get to my number 1. So we've talked about a lot of great comics today. I guess my question is going to be, Cami, do you know what it is?
So I just, with how excited you were with the title, I'm putting my money on Dick Tracy.
It can't be Dick Tracy because Dick Tracy actually came out in 2024 and it actually was in my top 5 last year.
Okay, okay.
But
So,
I'm gonna say something. You are
hmm,
so freaking close because it's a Mad Cave title.
okay.
So when I heard that this book was coming out, I knew I was going to absolutely love it. But I didn't know just how special this book was going to be, even though I picked up the Free Comic Book Day issue 0, and I knew that the writer was there and he was writing one of my favorite books. It actually was in my top 3 in 2024. And the first story arc ended in December. So I was so glad because it blew all the other comics out of the water in terms of entertainment and fun. My favorite book of 2025 is Speed Racer by David Pepose.
Oh, I'm such a bonehead. Duh. Yes, of course. Speed Race. Yes, that's all you freaking rave about is how happy you are about those damn covers. So yes, how could I miss the beat on this one?
I mean, I will say one thing. Some of the titles that I mentioned in our video this evening, in terms of overall writing and artwork, are 10 times better than Speed Racer, but they're not as fun as Speed Racer because
you've had so much fun with that this past year.
David Pepose blew my mind with how good Space Ghost was in 2024. And I'm still reading the second volume. I don't think it's as compact and contained as the first story, but I'm still having a great time with it. But holy cow, I have not seen that many episodes of the original Tatsunoko Speed Racer cartoon, but I am a major advocate of the Wachowskis film that came out in the early 2000s. I went to see that movie 3 times in theaters. I'm a proud owner of that movie. It's one of the most underappreciated masterpieces of film. So I just had a feeling if David Pepose could give me such a thrill with Space Ghost, I know he's going to do the same with Speed Racer. This is better than Space Ghost.
I can't believe I missed the mark on that one.
David Tinto, his artwork is stellar. And these are just variants that I've been picking up because I love these old school anime looks. Yeah. But the A covers of this book are beautiful. But this is high octane, 10-4, ready for more. This is everything you want a Speed Racer comic to be. And what I also love about what's going on at Mad Cave Studios is that there are miniseries coming out right now and quarterly series coming out with some great writers. I mean, honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of a writer named Mark Russell, but his Racer X series is damn good. Not as good as the main title of Speed Racer, but it's damn good. And I also remember when this book was first coming out, and I thought that it was the newest title from Dynamite because Dynamite was doing all of those nostalgic properties. But then when I found out that it was Mad Cave, and the only title I was reading from Mad Cave at the time was Dick Tracy, and I'm still reading Dick Tracy, I was excited to know this because I wanted to give Mad Cave some more love. And this is one of the best books I've ever read. I cannot stress how much fun I'm having with this book. Andy is reading Speed Racer and he's loving it too. So cool. Yeah, the first story arc ended in December of 2025. The book is on a little bit of a hiatus, but in March, issue number 6 is coming out. I am also glad that I've been praising it because David Pepose communicates with our channel on X right now. And when issue number 5 came out, I just said, I really hope that this book is not canceled. And he said, there's more coming. Don't worry. There's some good ideas in the works. So go Speed Racer. That's all I'm going to say. It is such a good book. It really, really is.
Yeah, I missed the mark on that one. All right. So I'm gonna let you guess then. What do you think my number one is?
You see, that's the problem. It's really hard. Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm pretty sure it is not Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees Rite of Spring.
No,
Okay.
no.
So I
It's
guess
funny.
the
I feel like deja vu is happening right now because I feel like we had this conversation last year where we were talking about Beneath the Trees because that ended up being your number one pick. And you
Mhm.
were like, okay, I don't think it's yours though. So now let's think about what my number one pick was last year. Do you remember?
So is it another Turtles title?
It is not another Turtles title. If you'll
Oh.
recall, my number one pick last year was a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers title.
Oh, the one that Amy Jo Johnson wrote.
Yes, The
Is
Return.
it VR Troopers?
It is VR Troopers. That is my number one pick. That
Wow!
is
Oh
my
my
number one pick. So
goodness!
you know where my heart is at when it comes to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and this is
Yes.
like the sister franchise. This came out obviously as a television series in 1994. It segued after the debut of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in '93,
I didn't even watch a
and
few episodes.
oh, it was fun. It was so
Troop
fun. I mean, I was fully
Troopers 3 Go virtual reality and the dog talk.
yes, I was fully vested in that show. I didn't connect with it as much as I did with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but it was definitely a go-to on Fox Kids. And as you may recall, when the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers finally made its way onto the pages, there was a VR Troopers mashup, and it was a flip book. You could do Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on one side, VR Troopers on the other. So when I heard that this was coming out, I was like, "Oh, put me on the pull list. I want to see where this is going." I don't think I've consumed something so quickly. Every issue, I was just like, num, 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 give it to me. I just want to know what's going to happen. I mean, we revisit our favorite, this is all Saban Entertainment. So we have Ryan Steele, we have Caitlin Starr, and we have JB Reese. And this is just really a good fight for evil, fight against evil story. And it's just, it sucks you in from the very first issue. You're so excited. You get some backstory, but it's new and it's refreshing and it's vibrant and it's colorful. And oh my god, I had so much fun with this series the whole year. It was just like I couldn't wait for the next issue to come out. So because of the excitement that I felt for this series, I feel that's why I placed it at my number one, because
And,
I was just excited for it.
and this is also a Boom title, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
This is also a Boom title. Yes.
There's a lot of Boom this year, and that's really interesting considering the fact that I didn't really consume much from Boom Studios this year.
I feel like I had a little bit of whiplash in my choices this year because I did visit my horror roots, like I said. So I read a lot of indie horror titles, but unfortunately, it was just there was a lot more cheese than I had anticipated. I would say that when it comes to indie horror comic titles, the artwork is flippin' phenomenal. You can
Yes.
never go wrong with the artwork. But sometimes that's where it ends because then you get into the story and it's super cheese. And I think sometimes there's writers that aren't well known that try to be funny and they try to kind of make some things that should be heavy lighthearted, and then sometimes you get really heavy. And I'm not a gore horror type of person. I don't like to be overly consumed in the doom and gloom, so I like something that kind of balances in between, like Exorcism at 1600. That was just so chef's kiss. It was so well done. I'm telling you, it was this close to being my number one, but I just every time I thought about where do I table these, I had so much heart and excitement for VR Troopers. So that's why it placed where it did. But yeah, I just if you're not reading it, why? And if you're a fan of the 90s show, if you're a fan of the Power Rangers, how can you not like this sister adaptation? It's just a good time, and it's got a lot of action, like good action.
Well, VR Troopers, I think, had a lot more action than Power Rangers at certain points in time, reminding myself of the
Definitely
show.
different, and I think it was a little bit the budget was there, like they tried a little bit harder. I think having 3 characters versus 5, sometimes 6 characters probably helped matters in terms of spreading that budget out a little bit. But vastly different universes despite that they, all have a planetary vibe to them.
Well, you did hearken on a very important thing, and I definitely am with you there because I've mentioned it a couple of times here on the channel, and that is when you're reading a comic book and it's the art that's basically carrying the book for you, then it sort of makes you wonder, is this book even worth reading? It's really about the writer. No discredit to the artist. The artist should not be what drives a book. It really has to be the writing, and the artistry has to be the icing on the cake. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. When I find out that there is a new book that Alex Ross is doing the artwork for, then I'm going to get really excited and I'm going to want to check that out. But these days, when we take a look at Alex Ross, he's pretty much at this point in time, again, I hate what Marvel's doing with him right now. He's basically been reduced to just a cover artist. There are people that are currently buying the new Thor series over at Marvel simply because of the fact that Alex Ross is drawing them, the covers. And I'm just saying to myself, but is the book good? Because what's really funny was I read, because Al Ewing is doing the writing. He wrote the Immortal Thor, Alex Ross did all the covers, and now Al Ewing is writing the Mortal Thor, and Alex Ross is doing all the covers. So I read the first 10 issues of the Immortal Thor, and it started off strong, and then I basically said to myself, where in God's name is it going? By the time I got to the end of the second story arc, I was like, no, thank you, I'm done. But I think outside of the one big two title that we talked about today, which was Superman the Kryptonite Spectrum. And again, I said it at the beginning, it's here because of the fact that the team that was working on it is one of the hottest indie teams in comics today. There's a theme here, people, and we say this over here on the channel so much. You gotta step away from the mediocrity, people. I'm sorry. As someone who has read who read a lot of Marvel and DC this past year, most of the books that I purchased this year were because of the DC All-In initiative. I'm not going to.
I was so vested in that.
I am not going to say that they were the worst things that I ever read. Okay. I had a lot of fun, especially with what Jeremy Adams was doing. And of course, then you got the absolute titles. I mean, people are raving right now about Kelly Thompson's Absolute Wonder Woman, and rightfully so. Scott Snyder and Nick Dragona's Absolute Batman. You can't deny those books are completely crazy enjoyable. And I still will say that one of the strongest titles in the entire All-In initiative is Jeff Lemire's JSA. I love that book so much.
But I love the artwork. The artwork is beautiful.
But when you take a look at those titles, as well as the Ultimate Universe titles, Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man was overall, it's coming to an end, overall enjoyable. But you're going to compare those to the Energon universe from Josh Williamson and Robert Kirkman, and let's also remember that Daniel Warren Johnson was there. Apparently, there are now rumors that it's going to be Daniel Warren Johnson that comes back to the Energon universe to write Mask. If that's the case, I'll be very much into that. It's all going to depend on what the Energon 2026 special is going to be, because they said that they did announce that Daniel Warren Johnson is going to be doing some work on that book. So who knows? And then you take a look at what's going on with Jeff Johns and the Ghost Machine universe. And then you take a look at Dynamite Entertainment, and you take a look at all of these amazing nostalgic properties and taking a look at those people behind them. Declan Shalvey has done more than anyone would have expected with Drew Moss and his Thundercats run. And knowing what's coming in 2026 with Declan Shalvey and Ed Bryson makes me so excited, knowing that Jason Aaron has come out of his funk to write things like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series over at IDW for the first 2 story arcs, then to go on now, it's finally coming out this week. I cannot wait to read Thundarr the Barbarian issue #1. Yes. I am dying to see what he's going to do with this. And he also did Bug Wars, which I very much enjoy too. I just read the Spider-Witch special, and I'm looking forward to the second installment of this grand epic that he's trying to build. But the point that I'm trying to make here, Cami, and I know you're agreeing with me, is that the strength, the talent, the good writing, the stellar artwork, it's all in the pages of the indie books. And you know what? I don't even want to say the big two anymore. Even though it is an indie company, there really are the big three. Image is just making so many titles. Spawn still has his loyal following, and he's knocking on the door of 400 issues. That's going to be the world record holder of the longest running indie title in all of comics. And there's also now a slight, hopefully larger soon, nostalgia boom of classic Image titles. Rob Liefeld came back to do Youngblood again, and Mark Silvestri just started writing The Darkness. I'm 2 issues in, and I'm loving The Darkness, but you know, anyone that says that comics are on the verge of collapse, if you're just going to focus on that idea and just focus on the big two, then I'm going to say, yes, you're absolutely right. Comics are going by the wayside. But it's the images of the world, the Dynamites, the Mad Caves, the Boom Studios, the Dark Horse, they've got
Spot, Ani Press.
They got to pick up the ball. The ball has been dropped. Mm-hmm. Right now, DC has got the possession, and they're hitting buckets like no one would imagine in the longest of times. But, and, you know, after the DC KO event is done, I will not lie about the fact that there are some DC Next Level titles that I will check out only because of who's writing them. The fact that I've never picked up a Lobo comic in my entire life, but I want to pick it up only because of the fact that Scotty Young is writing it and Jorge Corona is drawing it. I've got to check that out. Yeah. I've never picked up a Legion of Superheroes book in my entire life, but Josh Williamson is going to be writing it. I never picked up, I know this character, I know what he's all about. I have never read a Firestorm comic book in my life, but I'm going to pick it up if Jeff Lemire is writing it. So there's things that I will still stick around with if the right people are doing the work on these books. But DC is going to take a massive dive when DC KO is done. I think I'll only be reading 3 or maybe 4 titles if Jeff Lemire is going to stay on JSA. And with Marvel, I'm going to only be down to 1. And that is The Infernal Hulk by Philip Kennedy Johnson, because Philip Kennedy Johnson is another creator that we don't hear too much about. But ever since he wrote Action Comics and wrote this amazing Warworld story, I am shocked that nobody's talking about it. And his Hulk run has been phenomenal. So that's where I am at right now. I'm just reading my indies right now, and I am loving my indies. I cannot wait for tomorrow, because we're recording this on Tuesday, February 3rd. New Comic Book Day is tomorrow, everybody. And I am excited for a title called Dork by Brett Bean. Who, you're asking? Go look for it in your local comic book store, everybody. That book looks like it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, there's always fun. Fun always follows indie titles, and we've showcased that, you know, year after year now, that we are reading our indies, we are loving our indies, and we are advocating for more people to read these titles. So I think everything I mentioned here today, if you're not reading it, go pick it up. You know, the trades are readily available for most of the things that I had mentioned. So, you know, it's time to invest in indie if you haven't yet done so.
Yeah, I still love seeing some of the other creators in the community. And then when they talk about the fact that, oh, the newest issue of Geiger's coming out, or the newest issue of G.I. Joe is coming out, or the newest issue of Void Rivals, or the newest issue of Redcoat, and the poll is so low. And they're trying to figure out why, because these books are some of the best.
It baffles my mind. I mean, I have had more fun with Void Rivals and just entertaining that entire universe than I have in a long time. It is just, it's a unique storyline, you know? And if you haven't picked it up by now, what the hell are you waiting for, you know? There's so many good titles that I just feel should have a much larger fan base than they do. I think it scares you. You know, people go to the comic book store and they pull what is familiar to them. They go to titles that they heard other people talk about. I am a stickler for going outside the box. You know, I will go and pick a title. I'm a big cover buyer, don't get me wrong. I love a good artwork, but I will go with titles that I've never heard of because I want to see what is this about, and I will also gravitate to publishing companies that are lesser known because sometimes you find those gems, you know. So let this be the year. Let 2026 be the year that you really get into those indie comics.
I hope so. So I think that's where we're going to stop. It was a great conversation, Cami. I love seeing all of your picks. I'm really impressed that last year you guessed my number one, and this year I guessed your number one. I found that really, really interesting. I think what's really funny is all three of our top three actually had one interesting thing in common. Because I didn't mention this earlier, but each of us for our number two was a title that started in 2024 and went into 2025 full force. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, everybody, thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments in the box below. Let us know what some of your favorite books in 2025 were. And as I always like to say in some of my solo videos, is there anything that I might have missed? Because I'd like to know if there's a title out there that we aren't reading that we didn't even mention. But we're hoping to see you guys soon. There's a lot of things in the works that we think about right now. Cami and I are constantly talking about things to do because we're pretty much in the driver's seat right now. Everybody else has a lot of things on their plates right now, but give them time, guys. They are going to come back. And in the meantime, please enjoy what you're reading and read what you enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.